Okay, I'm good to go when you are.
Okay.
Oh, I said I put chit chat in there. I thought we should. I don't know. Did we talk to each other or
Oh, that's funny. I was actually going to say chit
just chit
chat.
chat? Ron Burgundy.
Oh, that's the best. That's the best. I was just like,
That's
it's
why I
just,
said it, because I thought, oh no, Gerard is
because
going to read chit chat.
I'm gonna read it, mate. It's 1:30 in the morning. That's gonna read that. One of the best bits of advice I've ever received was to find good mentors and to learn from them. Trusted people who have already done what you're trying to do now. I've been fortunate throughout my career to have some fantastic mentors to help guide me, but I realized that they'd be hard to find and also hard to commit the time to one. This is why we've gathered some of the best minds from the veterinary world and squeezed them for their wisdom so that you don't have to learn the hard way.
With the help of our guests, we flip the veterinary profession on its back and explore its soft underbelly to find the tips, tools, and inspiration that you'll need to build the career that you've always wanted.
I'm Gerardo Poli.
I'm Hubert Hemstra, and this is the Vet Vault.
Welcome back to the Vet Vault. After our little Christmas break, I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and an amazing New Year. I spent it in the hospital working on Christmas, but I'm fairly certain that Hubert was surfing along the southwestern coast of Western Australia.
No, I was not away. I do work sometimes. Just like all emergency services, this is our busy time of the year. So now I was actually working at doing veterinary work. It's not always just surfing, but it was good in between. Lots of good family time.
We had our Christmas actually at on New Year's Day. So, and that was a real good time, and it was really good to separate the family time away from work time. Sometimes as emergency veterinarians, you want to fit in family time on Christmas time, but for me, Christmas is where the rest of the team at AES, and I'm sure emergency vets around, get to have their biggest impact on the public. But let's get back to it. Before we introduce today's guest, you'll notice that we discuss one of our listeners' questions in this episode. If you have a burning question that you want answered, remember to send us an email at thevetvaultpodcast@gmail.com or by messaging us on Instagram. Back to this episode, we're excited to kick off the new year with today's guest. Carolyne Crowe worked for 11 years as an equine vet in both the UK and New Zealand before deciding to shift her energy from primarily helping animals to helping people by becoming an award-winning personal performance coach, mentor, international speaker, researcher, and lecturer.
She has a master's degree in workplace health and wellbeing and continues to research this field. She's a master trainer in disc behavioural profiling, a CPCAB trainer in stress management and well-being, a certified trainer in resilience, a mental health first aider, and an honorary lecturer at the University of Liverpool. She was awarded Life Coach of the Year in 2015 at the International Coaching Awards. She became an honorary fellow of the Coaching Academy in 2016 and a founding member of the Coaching of Excellence accreditation in 2019. So basically, when it comes to building a fulfilled career in veterinary science, or anywhere for that matter, you want to hear what Carolyne has to say. She's passionate about helping others equip themselves with the tools and strategies to get the most out of their personal and professional lives. After successfully running her coaching and training business for several years, Carolyne works as a training consultant with the Veterinary Defence Society training team in the UK, developing, training, and coaching individuals, teams, and practices to be the best they can and to thrive both personally and professionally. She's clearly someone who loves a challenge. So in 2017, she proved this point by running 10 marathons in 10 days, raising over £100,000 for the Brook charity, which is not bad for someone who only ran her first marathon in September of 2016.
Outside of work, Carolyne is a wife of a vet, mother of two small children, and what she describes as a keen runner, which I'd say sounds like a bit of an understatement. We cover a wide range of topics in our conversation with Carolyne, like the most common problems that she encounters with her clients and her favorite solutions to these problems. Also about building resilience and self-awareness and why coaching is important and who's it for. And of course, how to prepare for running 10 marathons in 10 days when you also have a business to run and two young kids, and more importantly, why you'd want to do it in the first place. Carolyne also answers a tricky listener question about a situation that I think many of our listeners will have to deal with at some point in their careers. Please enjoy.
Let's say it together.
On three. Okay,
Go
3,
for it.
2. No, I'm just kidding. No, you go for it. You go for it, mate.
Please enjoy Carolyne Crowe. And welcome back to another episode of the Vet Vault. We've had a bit of a break over the Christmas season, like everybody else, hopefully, and we are back with Carolyne Crowe. I almost said Dr. Carolyne Crowe, but in the UK, you don't get to call yourselves doctor. Is that right?
Well, we can now, but and so some do, and so when people are qualifying now, that they do, but for old timers like myself, we often don't.
Wow, I never knew that.
Do you get to choose now, or do you have to have a?
Yeah, so oh gosh, I'm going to get my dates totally wrong, but 2 or 3 years I think it's been. So we now qualify with as a doctor.
Okay.
So all the new graduates are now doctor, whoever. And we can certainly adopt that if we want to. So that was a choice that we could make 2 or 3 years ago, and we can still do that. I can still call myself what I wanted to, but I haven't.
Okay, I was quite disappointed. I qualified in South Africa where we are doctor, and I was doctor for about a month, and then moved to the UK. So I lost my title again for the next 5 years.
And but you moved to Australia, and we call ourselves doctors.
Exactly.
Here,
then I upgraded again when I moved to Australia. Back to doctor.
When I worked in New Zealand, I was doctor, and that was quite nice for a bit actually. And then I moved back and detitled myself.
Excellent. I want to start off with something non-work related. Reading up on you, Carolyne, I saw that you ran a couple of years ago 10 marathons in 10 days.
Wow.
Now, the obvious question is, why the hell would you do that?
My obvious retort is then, why not? So, so that was in 2017. And it was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. It was the most amazing thing I've ever done. And but when I come sort of back to it, a lot of people said, why are you doing this? Are you mad? And because I wasn't a runner, so I did April 2017. As it came up to September 2016 was my first ever marathon. And prior to having my children in 2008, after that, I didn't run. I used to go to the gym and be very sporty, but I never ran. I thought people who ran were a little bit bonkers. But I was probably having a bit of a midlife crisis, I suppose. I was turning 40 in 2017. I think as you get older, certainly I've had lots of I suppose life events through friends who have been injured or got really ill and haven't been able to do what they wanted to do. We got a friend whose son was just about to go to University, and he suddenly became quadriplegic in a car accident, and he would have been the person who always would have just gone, yeah, I'll do that. And I just thought, well, if I can, then I will try. I also, so that was a really, really big impetus, what happened to our friend's son, Bob. Another one was in my work, I talk about, I have this sort of exercise I do with people. I ask people to think about when they're 80 and think about the stories that they're going to tell their grandchildren or the people that they love, because not everyone has grandchildren. And I think for me, one of the stories I wanted was to do something out of my comfort zone and I wanted to create my story. And actually things like Eddie Izzard running his 40 marathons in 40 days, and I thought if he could do it, I could probably do it, or at least try. And I wanted to inspire my children. So at that point, the kids were 9 and 7, and I just thought, you know, they have a nice life, hopefully, and they. But I want them to be able to see that actually, if you push yourself, you like, stuff comes from if you try and work hard and train and have a goal, and to inspire them to take themselves out of their comfort zone, not straight away, obviously, but in time. And also, I always wanted to really raise a lot of money for charity, and to do one big sort of thing. So I love it. I love a challenge. I've always loved a challenge. So I decided I wanted to raise the money for the Brook Animal Hospital, because for me that was a really nice symbiotic. If you help the people, you help the animals, and if you help the animals, you help the people. And what I now do in my role is I've moved away from my clinical work, from helping animals directly, to helping people help the animals. So it was a nice. It felt a really, really good fit. So the Brook is helping equids and horses, donkeys, and mules in the poorest communities of the world. And by supporting them and supporting those who look after them, that hopefully have a bigger impact for not only the animals, but also for the people. And so it was definitely a combination of those. And just thinking, like, why not? We always put things off. There's never a good time. The kids were still young. My husband works as an equine vet. He's more than full time. My job I was just getting it prepared in my business to sell. I mean, I was the busiest I've probably been for a long time at that point. But we don't know what's around the corner. And if I didn't take that opportunity might have gone. So I decided to create that as a goal, and did it with a friend, a guy called Brian Faulkner, who's also a vet. So we called it 10 to London. We had one official marathon, which was the last one, which was the London Marathon. So we ran for the 10-day or 9 days up to the London Marathon. That was our 10th.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
That's incredible. Wow. Alex, my partner, and I, and Rob, our business partner, we did the Kokoda challenge, which is 100 and I don't know, they say it's 96 Ks, but it turns out to be like 106, because they can never quite kind of get the calculations right, given the altitude. It's like 5 kilometers of altitude. And gosh, that was really hard. And we used to run like 80 Ks a week, and then every Friday we did a marathon. But that kind of destroyed me. I could not imagine doing 10 marathons, one every day in a row. It's
a mindset. Actually, it was probably the simplest time of my life since probably being a child, because it was planned. So we had a really good support team. So there were key things that we did. One was I went and found lots of experts. So I went and spoke to a guy called Greg White, who is Olympic pentathlete, but he's also he's the guy behind Eddie Izzard, and we have a thing in the UK called Sport Relief, where a lot of celebrities do challenges. So Greg is the guy behind David Walling's swim and Davina McCall's bike rides and John Bishop's stuff. So he's brilliant. And I got a couple of friends who know him and said, oh, you should go and speak to him. So, it's amazing actually, if you just ask, and so many people are really willing to sort of give their time. So he said, yeah, come up to London, met him up his Harley Street practice. He's wicked. And he took me out for coffee, and he just gave me an hour of his time, and it was probably the most valuable hour that I had in that preparation time. And that was in November, so it was literally the day before London Vet Show, November 2016. And I remember him sitting there saying, you need to be really comfortable running marathons in training. And I remember thinking, because at that point I'd only ever run one marathon. I think it took me a week to recover. And so he sort of says, like, your support team are the most important. Everybody needs that, and it's just a classic sort of thing about teamwork. Everybody needs to know their role. When like all the emphasis is going to be on you and Brian, and actually everybody in that van is going to get tired. So everybody needs to be supported, and you need to have a strategy around how to work together and and what that looks like, and think about, do those if-then planning, think about what happens if you get injured on marathon 2, what are you going to do next? Every day you finish a marathon just is not about, right, I finished that, it's about how do I prepare for the next day. So it was very much around a lot around how we can just apply to just normal life. So strategy, teamwork, setting yourself up, recovery, and training and seeking advice and seeking experts. That the training was the hardest bit, definitely, because it was lonely, it was boring. I would get up at the weekend at 5 and go for a run and still be running at 11. I remember going out once on a Saturday, and a friend of mine saw me about 8 o'clock in the morning, and then she saw me at 11 o'clock as well, and then went, you're not still running? I was like, oh my God, I'm still running. And it was just like, oh God. But actually, when we did the marathons for the 10 days, it was really simple, because all I had to do was put one foot in front of another and run for 4.5 hours. That's what I had to do. Didn't have to think about anything else. Didn't have any other pressures on me. I just had to run. And that was really empowering, actually. It was really simple. It was really simple. It hurt. I'm not going to pretend.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
So where in your career were you at this stage? Were you still clinical vetting, or had you transitioned?
No. So I transitioned. So I transitioned in 2012, 2013. So I was purely coaching and training practice, but I was just about to sell my business to the Veterinary Defence Society at that point. So I sold in July, so I was setting it up for that.
What business was that you sold?
Carolyne Crowe Coaching. So the veterinary part of Carolyne Crowe Coaching, I sold to the Veterinary Defence Society, who are professional indemnity insurers in the UK. Yeah. And so we then set up VDS training. So I still run Carolyne Crowe Coaching for non-vets. So I work with professional athletes and medics and sort of other high-performing professionals. I work quite a lot with engineers, senior management teams in schools, like on the side, I suppose. But all my vet work is within VDS training. So whereas the insurance company is there to pick up the pieces when we make a mistake, at VDS training, our impact is well, our aim is to try and prevent those mistakes happening in the first place, because we're in a very privileged position within the profession where we know why people make a mistake, and it's not because of a lack of clinical or technical skills, but it's due to poor communication, or people are getting stressed, and so they are not focusing on the here and now. They're sort of their heads full of what happened 5 minutes ago, or they're worried about surgery coming up, or they're not looking after themselves, so they haven't eaten or had taken a break, or there's a toxic culture, people aren't sharing information, or it's maybe their own sort of levels of expectation and perfectionism, which are potentially, again, tripping them up. So by hopefully training people in the human factors, and helping them become more have that higher degree of resilience, improve the cultures in which we work in, to coach people to perform at their best, then hopefully the aim is to reduce the risk of making an error in the first place, which will then impact on our insurance company. So.
And are you still doing that coaching? So you sold the business, but it's still you doing it?
Yes, and me, and then also a team. So the great thing now is we're across the profession, and we've got a team of 7 of us, who between coaches and trainers as well. So so 100% I do a lot of every day. I either do one-on-one coaching. We got group coaching programs. Created a leadership program, resilience and thriving at work workshops. We've got online platforms as well. Returning to work with confidence. So just trying to support people at every stage of their career. So working with the undergraduates at the universities, we do quite a bit of training with that. We've got a sort of a student membership group, and then we do a lot of new graduate training, so helping people manage that transition period. And then all the way through. So, and then a lot of leadership. I love doing the leadership area. So either personal leadership, and also then helping helping those in leadership positions get the best out of themselves, but also get the best out of those that they work with as well. Many people, as I'm sure you're very aware, many people go into leadership positions within the veterinary profession and lots of other professions. I think this is one of the really common things, because they're good at what they do. So that as in they're good technically or good clinically, or they've been in that role for a long time. And so their bit of career progression is sort of moving into that management role. So that might be owning a practice or becoming a clinical director or head of team. But actually they don't, many of them don't actually like people, or they do like people and they do want to do a really good job, but because they are probably also really good at what they do, and so there are higher turnovers, and so they haven't necessarily got time to take away from their clinical stuff to invest time into their ideally their coaching leadership role. So they then feel very squeezed as well. So we're getting quite a lot of burnout in people in the senior positions as well, because they're trying to do the best they can do for their team, whilst also trying to deliver the amount of turnover that they need to, that their sort of position requires of them, and they're squashed. They just haven't got time. They're not allocating time, or time's not being allocated for them to do all the roles that they need to do in their work.
Yeah, because quite often it's kind of, you still have to maintain productivity as well as, because is being a star performer or a high performer, someone who can build rapport really quickly, generate good revenue, not having many complaints. You're still expected to do that while then step up into a role that they haven't had any prior leadership training, let alone management training. And management and leadership are completely two different things.
Totally different things. Management, leadership, and being a team player, and they need to do all of those things all the time. And the common thing that we have said is that I haven't got time. So when you ask them, okay, how much time do you have time allocated to your clinical work? Yeah, they put their hand up. Do you have time allocated to your management stuff? No. But that's a fundamental principle. If you don't have time allocated to your roles, you won't have time to do it. You might have the best of intention, but you won't have time. You just can't. You're between a rock and a hard place.
I have this belief that everyone should undergo leadership training, and I'm sure the components of what you roll out to students involve some aspects of that, because generally what happens is a student goes out and they graduate and they become a veterinarian. They go into a role which generally puts them in charge of people, or having to make decisions based on the clinical management, decisions based on like invoicing, billing, complaint management. All of a sudden, because people defer to them for their judgment, they are then put in a position of leadership, which they don't realize that they're in. Yeah.
100%. So our first day that we do for the new grads is called personal leadership, and probably one of my first questions to them is, who sees themselves as the leader in this room? And very few of them do. But they're leading their clients every day. They're leading their team. But leadership doesn't need to come with a title. And also fundamentally, we need to lead ourselves effectively every day. And the tools and techniques that we learn to lead others, actually we need to take on board for ourselves and role model. Absolutely. Because otherwise we won't be effective. But yeah, I totally agree that leadership is, I just think it's bonkers. In so many other professions, you would not be given a leadership position without going through some training. And yet sometimes training is seen a bit like a dirty word, like I don't need that. Like, why do I need that? I'm a vet, I can do all these things. And yeah, we can all do most things, but if A, we've got time, and B, we've had training, we're not born with all these skills. I think we forget that we've just done 5-6 years of intense 9 till 5 plus hours of training to do our day-to-day role, and we sort of forget we still see these skills as soft skills, but they're not. They're hard. They are so hard, and
totally.
they make you think, which is why people actually don't want to do them, because it actually starts to challenge you of how maybe the strategies and the ways in which you've been working and living have got you to where you are now, but then they start to hold you back, and being able to reevaluate and just check in with yourself and think about what is working, what isn't working, what do I want to continue to do, what do I need to stop doing, what do I need to learn, what do I need to start doing, is such an important skill to have straight away, but also all the way through our careers and our lives.
I totally agree with you saying there about the skills that have gotten to where you are, but ultimately they're your strong suits, which will ultimately be then the armor which will hold you back. It's you know, like, you can only progress so far with the skills that you have, and to go to the next level, you either have to stop doing what is holding you back and start doing something new that will then enable you to actually step forward. And some people don't see that, just think they're going to keep on trying harder and harder doing the same thing, as opposed to actually reevaluate.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, I mean, it's going to be big generalizations, but what we tend to do is so during school, we know what we need to do to pass exams. You know where to go to learn. You can create the environment. So that might be with a bit of music, but generally by yourself, working with your books, concentrating, focusing, reading, and writing your exams, and that's fine. Then you get into and you do all your EMS, and you do all your, not EMS, but you do all your work experience, and you're sort of in control of all those different arms, and you can build you. And you get into university, you have a bit of a realization that actually you aren't the top of the game, and that can be challenged. There are many more intelligent people, but actually, hopefully, you always realize that isn't actually that important. But again, you can work hard, you can learn things, you can hide yourself in the library, you can practice. And if you think about it, at university, we're basically taught that an animal comes in with these signs. We have this list of differentials, we do these tests, and then we get this outcome. But actually, what then happens when we qualify, so we can pass our exams, we know how to pass exams. Then what happens when we qualify is the animal comes in, it hasn't read the textbook, so we don't actually know quite what that picture looks like. The client might not be on the same page as us, because we want to do X, Y, and Z, but actually they might want to do something different, or they're not, or we feel that they're not listening, or then we might want to do all those tests, and that might be ideal or gold standard, as we sort of hold ourselves to expect with. But then maybe the practice hasn't got the equipment, the client hasn't got the money, you haven't got time in order to either think about it or do it. And then if we're not careful, we suddenly start to feel like we have failed, and we've failed to deliver best standard, like best or gold standard sort of treatment. And again, it's not because so it's not about not trying, and it's not about not trying to do our best. However, it's recognizing that we have been taught things in such a way that actually can hold us back. And then we also set ourselves to hold ourselves to those expectations. And actually, there are so many uncontrollables that where we've gone through into a system where we have been very controlled and been able to control our environments and control our outputs, to a situation where actually we need to work with people. Everybody else is unpredictable. Our own emotions are unpredictable as well, and then we can't. We're not God. We are not. We can't fix everything. We can only. Our role very much is to help others make the best, most informed choices for the animals under their care, rather than to save and fix everything. So managing our own expectations through that period of change where it sort of all seemed to be, this is what I'm going to do when I qualify, and most people will go in into veterinary because they want to work with animals. Whereas actually the majority of the job is working with people. So when I work with the undergraduates, I think they think I've literally lost the plot when I sort of ask them, how many of you wanted to go into veterinary? Well, why are you in vet school? Is it because you wanted to work with animals? And they all put their hand up. Great. They look at me a bit funnily. And then I say, how many of you would love to have maybe been a doctor, but you didn't really want to work with people? I'd say on average, 60 to 70 people, 70% of people put their hand up.
That was me. I literally said that. I remember saying that when I was in first year.
And then how much of our job is people? 95%. We are in veterinary. We are a client service industry. It's not about the animals. It's about the animals. I think are a bit of a byproduct. It's about people, and then we can get to the animals. Our role is very much, and what we swear certainly in MRCVS is to do the best for the animals under our care. But that doesn't mean actually fixing them or doing what's in our head. That's just at best for that situation with the animals. So we need to learn that flexibility and that not everything's black and white. And also just that realization of expectations. So the other question I ask people is, when did they decide to be a vet? So for you two, when did you decide to be a vet? 10?
Yeah, right at the end of school. Yeah.
No, I was like 21.
Oh, you were late. Yeah.
I love science. I loved medicine and physiology. And I picked it because I didn't want to work with humans.
Exactly the same.
But one thing I realized when I was a student, I was actually a librarian, and I was dealing with the public all the time. And I soon realized actually that I really liked talking to people, and I really liked interacting with people. And over the last couple of years, I get so much more enjoyment now. I love the clinical challenge, but it's really seeing the impact you can have on people, families. When you really create winning and high value trusting, like high trusting relationships with your clients as quickly as you can, that is the challenge I find.
Definitely.
Mine's different. I was I didn't enjoy the client. I'm sociable. I enjoyed friends, but I found the client interactions really stressful, and didn't like it, and tried to avoid it and focus too much on the animal part. But it was 10 years into my career that I learned that lesson that Gerard says, that is actually where the joy in the job is. And now I'm much better at it, and I like it more and more. But for the first 10 years, I didn't like being a vet because of that aspect of it.
And it is finding the bit. So when people go in for the animals, or they go in actually for that scientific stimulation and the academic stimulation, so a lot of people go in, they think they want to be a vet so before the age of 10, and so then that carries them through. So obviously that's a very informed choice. And then but then it actually often becomes there's a significant number of people who it actually then becomes maybe their parents' choice, and they feel they don't want to let people down, and then that's why they become a vet. And it's not necessarily they don't own it. So you can learn to own that yourself. That's absolutely fine. Or it's actually then that's when they need to start to make choices about what they want to do the rest of their career. And then a lot of other people would sort of say it's around sort of 15, 16, 17 when they were good at science. They looked at what they could do with their science. They liked that academic stimulation. But again, if we look at the role, generally it's about people, and it's very routine. It's not, obviously there are some jobs which are like really stretching the boundaries of what we can do and very academic stimulating, but general day-to-day work, actually, even if you were the top orthopedic surgeon, it's routine. It's routine people.
Maybe after 12 months of challenge learning, or whatever it may be.
So the first couple of years, I think the first couple of years is like that. It is like you are learning. There's no two ways about it. Everything's new. Everything's a challenge. But then afterwards, then it becomes routine. But rather than being bored by that or being disillusioned by that, that's when we start to actually look at, actually, it is about people. And this is really interesting. Like, let's be intrigued by people and how we can get those bonds and build that rapport and have that trusting relationship with them, and do more and have that bigger impact. And that's where I think actually we can be really stimulated and really interested and learn to love our job again. And we will go through different cycles of learning to love our job, and that's okay, and that's normal. That's not because you hate your job and that you therefore need to leave being a vet. It's actually just that's a normal cycle that most people go through their careers, and I think getting used to that. So again, rather than that real fixed mindset, it's having more of that growth mindset where we're learning and growing, developing all the way through. Because again, if you think about it, often by the time we are 22, we've done our life goal to be a vet.
Yeah.
And then what? Well, what's that look like? Well, I just want to be a vet, but what's that look like?
So would you say that the cycle is like 2 to 3 years, like 2 to 3 years of challenge, and all of a sudden you've kind of realized that you've succeeded, and now 90% of what you see is the same thing, and you have your spiels, and you're like, okay, I'm either going to change profession or change a direction to a specialty. Then it's like 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden you've learned what you need to learn there, maybe longer. Do you feel that there's like because for me personally, it's about every 2 years that I feel that I've recreated my career. I'm always a veterinarian, and a fair chunk of my role is to a veterinarian.
Yeah, some people that cycle's a bit longer, and others, it's about, if you think about it, we'll probably be quite good at something after we've done it for a couple of years. So that first bit is like quite exciting. It's quite exciting, straight daunting, straight like you're in your stretch zone. And then as soon as you come back into your comfort zone, we'll probably be in our comfort zone for a year, 18 months and be quite happy with that. And then for some, they will stay there, and that's absolutely fine. Again, looking at sort of our personalities and how the environments we want to create with ourselves. Others will want to be looking for that next challenge, but it doesn't always have to be from work as well. I think people, too often we put too much emphasis that work has to fulfill us in everything in life. And actually, so sometimes it's then actually work is fine and work is steady, and that is okay. But I'm going to choose to then I've got a bit more energy now because work is sort of, I'm not spending all my energy at work. Then that's maybe when I go and do a challenge outside of work, or do have some other interests outside of work. And that's a good thing. I think when we think about our status and what we how we see ourselves, I think it's really important to always, and this is one thing I've learned over time, is that I work as a vet, so I don't work as a clinical vet, but if I did, I work as a vet. I'm not a vet.
Your identity,
so my identity is me as Carolyne. My identity is not a vet. My identity, I'm not. So who are you? I'm Carolyne Crowe. I'm a mum. I'm a wife. I love life. I work as a coach, a leadership trainer, but it's not who I am. It's not everything to me. It's a big part of my life. I spend a significant amount of my time on it, and I love what I do, and it's incredibly important to me. But it doesn't define me. So I think, but I think historically I've always said, mainly because it's quite easy, I'm a vet. You don't have to really say anything else, and it does. There's a status attached to that as well, and so it just cements it, and also what other people think. So I think it was easy for parents and friends and family to say it in a way that then obviously they're very proud of that. Which then maybe when we're struggling with our job, it carries a lot more baggage than it probably should do, but it still does.
So what happened? Tell us about your move from clinical practice into other things. How did that happen? Why did it happen? What was your story?
Well, my story. So I was a stud vet. I worked in the UK, worked in New Zealand. Fundamentally loved being a clinician, loved my work. I'm not going to say every day was a bed of roses, but I really loved it. I had a great team, we worked really well together, had sort of 4 of us on our stud rota, so stud and ambulatory. So I did that for 11 years, so qualified 2002 and finished that in 2013. I think over time, I got more and more interested in people. As I said, I'm married to an equine surgeon, and we ended up working in the same practice, which was all great. He's in hospital, I was out and about, so it wasn't really like actually working together. I'd been asked if I wanted to be a partner, but I knew that Ollie would also be asked, so actually I said I didn't say, but like I thought it'd be totally unhealthy to have two partners in the relationship. So one was fine. I had my two children, so I took a year off with each of them, and then went back to work part-time. And for me, part-time was I worked 6 in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so I could still do my stud round, and I did that 4 mornings a week, and then a full-on call. So I'm not really sure how part-time that is, but anyway, it was definitely deemed as part-time. But I suppose I got into that routine bit, really. I knew I could. So I used to do a lot of obviously just standard repro work. I used to do a lot of freezing semen and sort of semen analysis. I wrote a couple of papers. So I'd done a lot within that part of my career, and I could have carried on doing that for the next 20 years, and that's fine. But I just wanted to do more. That I had different skills, and probably more the people part that was interesting to me. I was the first vet to get pregnant in our practice. It was very male at that point. It was a very male practice. And they didn't have a clue. They were really supportive, but literally didn't have a clue. And I didn't have a clue what I was doing, or what I could do or not do. And then I was probably also the first of my uni mates to get pregnant as well. So when they then got pregnant, they asked me what I did, how I worked it. And I just thought, God, there's nothing out there for our profession to help women go through this stage of both being pregnant whilst working, what you can and can't do, what you should and shouldn't do, and then also when you return to work, how that works, and again going through the drop of confidence and the uncertainty, and then trying to juggle it with kids and like all that sort of just the normal stuff of returning back to work. So I think somebody suggested that I wanted to do more. I wanted to go into a management role. I know that I didn't want to do that within our practice, because again, I didn't think that was particularly healthy. Didn't really want to work for another practice either, because I loved my practice. So I looked at what else was out there. I can't remember what actually led me to the coaching, but I went and did a 2-day coaching taster day, and I will put my hand up, and I will say I thought that coaching was probably, like a lot of horse vets, was a bit I thought I'd have to wear sandals and hug trees, to be honest, and I thought it was all a bit airy-fairy and wishy-washy, and it's not me. And anyway, I remember this 2-day taster session, I sat there and thought, oh my God, this is the most pragmatic, positive, practical thing and way of seeing life and doing things, and like this is me. This is absolutely what I want to be doing. We've had I think also just taking a couple of steps back, I remember being really surprised right at the beginning of my career of how many of my friends didn't enjoy their job, and weren't thriving. And I now realise that I was in a very supportive environment, but at the time I thought, God, blimey, we've just spent 5 years training for this. What do you mean you don't enjoy it? And as I said, I'm not going to say that every day was a better race, but fundamentally, I really, really enjoyed it. And also we've had over 10, between myself and my husband, we've had over 10 friends or colleagues who've committed suicide. And those are all really big pushes to do something more for people. And each one obviously has a big impact. And it is a waste, and it doesn't need to be like that. And at the time, I think a lot of people were starting to talk. That's 2012. A lot of people there's a lot of research coming out around suicide, and I thought we need to talk about this, but also we need to be talking we need to be 30 steps behind, in front or behind that. We need to prevent people getting anywhere near that stage. So what can we do to help people thrive? And because fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's just a job. And I know it can be really all-consuming and etc., but it's just a job. So how can we help people get more? So I did my coaching diploma to start off with, and then I went on and did diplomas I realised quite early on that actually a majority of the things people were coming to coaching from had there was like stress element. And so then I went on and did diplomas in stress management and then resilience training for both individuals and then also the managers of the teams. And then I did my master's degree in workplace health and wellbeing, which is basically workplace stress. And then I qualified with my master's degree in 2016, 2016 and 2017, I think it was.
Really dove deep into that side of things, into the coaching and the skills and the knowledge you would need to help assist the people, or have the frameworks, I suppose, to assist the people that you were coaching, and then have a bigger impact. You started to realize that it's beyond the one; it's now teams.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, and this might be another vet thing, but to be properly qualified for something was really important. So I needed to be a qualified coach. So that was really important for me to gain the skills and to gain the level of the skills that was important. And then to have that. So I like to look at things in a quite strategic, holistic, in terms of like most things are multifactorial. And I think we need to have frameworks and structure. There's not, although we might just see one like problem in inverted commas, actually there's often lots of different things which are leading up to that. And we need to be able to take that step back and look at it from different angles. So being able to have the knowledge and the structures and the systems and the tools and the techniques to help people unlock themselves and stick themselves when they find to be really stuck from different angles, because everybody's different. So it's not one size fits all at all. And that was really important for me to be able to do. So resilience is not a personality characteristic. Resilience is a way of working, a way of being, and it's something that we need to learn. And it's an active process. So I am not resilient. You are not resilient. I have a degree of resilience to the environment I'm in at the moment, but I need to make sure that I feed my resilience, because every day something will be draining it. So I need to know what works for me as well as what trips me up. And so there's no point making people resilient and then making them then work in a very toxic environment or with a toxic manager. Or so you need to have resilient individuals or people with a high level of resilience, individuals working in a resilient team, working in a resilient profession. So which then means that ability to be flexible and adaptable and to see the future and to pick yourself up when you get hit down, but to learn from it and to grow and to develop. So again, having that, for me, the Workplace Health and Wellbeing Masters gave me that much bigger oversight of culture and how to do things better. And from that, we've created the culture survey, where we can help teams by surveying them anonymously within their roles to look at what are what's not working, but also what's working well. So I think what I'd like to do for 2020 is to start to change the conversations in the profession from one of being negative, because I think a lot of the social media at the moment has been, or certainly recently, is still quite negative about expecting burnout, around burnout, around suicide, around toxic cultures, around that it's everybody else's fault, about negative clients, like a lot of negativity. Whereas actually, I want to turn it into, I'd like to change the conversation into, let's look at what we love about our jobs and what we love about our lives, and how can therefore we do more of those things. So by helping teams look at be aware of what's not working so they know what to change, but also what's working well, so that we can then focus on those and do more of that, because that will have as equal, if not more of an impact than just changing the negative bits.
Some of these things you can't even change.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are we going to, and this is one thing that I totally agree with you saying, because we can only really change what we can control, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we can change the whole entire team, we can change the environment that the team's in. That's that's what we can control. But like changing, maybe I just don't see it as a really kind of, if I was going to invest my energy somewhere, I invest my energy in something that I know I'll have an outcome in, as opposed to expecting clients to change. And even then, it's our perception of their behavior, which makes it negative. Like people grieve in different ways. We can't expect them to behave in a particular way, you know? And also, I think it's somewhat selfish that we have this expectation of how they should treat us when we might treat our mechanic that same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always about what you can control and then what you can influence. Hopefully I can only control what I say, what I do, how I feel, how I behave. I cannot control what you say, what you do, what you say, how you behave, what you think. Hopefully I can influence that by, again, what I say, what I do, how I behave, how I act. And there is always a reason behind our behavior and the behavior of clients or behavior of colleagues. So how are we, and again, expectations. So a lot of people will say, oh, but they were so disrespectful. Well, what does respect look like? They might not even be aware that they're being disrespectful, and you're actually adding a massive level of judgment on somebody else's behavior. And some majority of people we work with, the majority of our clients are not psychopaths and sociopaths. And they don't intend to come in and upset you. And yet you have been offended or upset or made angry by what they have said or done. And actually what you've done is you have chosen to be upset or angry or overly sensitive to that. So, and that's about a choice of what you can do. So know that there may be some people who trigger you. And then just acknowledging that and thinking about, well, how am I going to act? What am I going to do? How am I going to behave? How am I going to feel? I'm putting some emotional buffers in there. So a little bit of know that Mrs. Jones is going to come in, know that she's going to go on and on and on, or going to complain, or she's going to get angry, or whatever the emotion that they throw at you. But then think about how you're going to choose so they have less of an impact. You still need to see Mrs. Jones. You still need to work in a small environment, but there's why are you choosing to be stressed by that every day? Choose where to expend your emotional energy. And that is a choice. And it's very easy to sit here and say that that's a choice, and it's hard to do, but that's where we can learn, and that's what we can learn to do. And that's what we learn to do through a lot of coaching, is about choosing our behaviors and choosing our responses and choosing how we're going to feel. Because we are all emotional beings. So it's not about being an emotional robot, but only I can decide whether I have a good or a bad day. So not whether I work with somebody or I have certain cases or I see certain clients. Actually, I'm going to decide whether I have a good or a bad day. And that's about me putting myself back in control of my driving seat and seeing where I'm going to focus my energies. And I'm still going to have to do exactly the same things as I did yesterday, but I'm going to choose to have a better day today, because I'm going to decide what I allow to affect me. And again, I think if you're unaware of yourself and unaware of your behaviors, and you're in that reactive state, then it's easy to sort of go through the day sort of being battered from one post to another, and then at the end of the day you are totally emotionally wrung out because you've been up and down and all over the place, and because of every interaction that you've had. So it's about being a little bit more in control of what you're doing and how you're processing things and how you're working.
So how do you learn this? How do you practice it? Because this is all the stuff you're talking about. I am cerebrally aware of. I've learned this. I know it, and on a good day, I'm good at it. And then shit goes wrong, and even though I catch myself, I'm self-aware that it's happening. I'm reacting so emotionally to this, and I don't want to. Sometimes I still suck at it. Sometimes at the end of the day, I go, well, I totally failed at at making the right choices of how I want to be and deciding to have a good day. How do you practice it? Where do you go to for resources? What's your recommendation to get better at that?
Well, I think if you're catching yourself, I think that's, and having self-awareness, I think to start off with, is the absolute fundamental starting point. So we use disc behavioural profiling to help us become more self-aware. So you're not born with self-awareness. Self-awareness is something you have to learn, and some people have been effective. And this is not about navel gazing and and pontificating about life, which I think some people think it is. But it's actually just about being like, what works for me? Why do I do what I do? What are the environments that that feed me and give me energy? What are the environments that drain my energy? So you can go in sort of eyes wide open each day, and know what you need to put into your day. So to start off with, sort of having a bit of a blank sheet of paper and think about, what do I need to do each and every day that enables me to have a greater chance to have a better day. So that might be, I need to factor in some quiet time. It might need to be, I need to factor in some social time. It might mean that I need to factor in some exercise time. I know that if I run before I start work each morning, it sets me up. So yes, it'd be lovely to go for an hour run, but actually if I can just go for 20 minutes, I feel better. And I can do that with my Labrador, it's even better. Like, it just sets me up. I also need to have some quiet time at some point during the day. Could again just be 20 minutes, but I might be able to do that driving towards getting the kids to school, and I'll just turn the music off, turn the radio off. But actually, again, making those habits to do that, and then also knowing when you are not at your best. So if it's when you haven't eaten or haven't slept very well. So again, in those particular times, if you've been out all night, or you've been on call, or you've had a heavy weekend, whatever it is, know that you are going to have to be a little bit more on yourself for that next couple of days, because your resilience is lower, full stop, and so therefore you're going to be more reactive. Knowing also, so with the DISC profiling, it looks at whether, like, maybe if you're more of a sensitive style, knowing what are the things which are more like to press your sensitive button. So thinking about, I feel that they might not like me, or that I've offended them or upset them, and actually, thinking about always, what was the intention behind that person's behavior? Do I really think they intended me to make me feel like this, or have I chosen to feel like this? So again, you can start to just catch yourself as you go into those, like maybe ruminations, or if you're starting to become really reactive. Speaking to your closest team members, so it might be at work and your support net group, or it might be your family, and so that saying that this is how you are on your best day, and this is how you are when you start to, these are the signs that you see in yourselves early on, so that they can help you pull yourself out of that, like really, really early on. I think so knowing what signs of stress you have. So I think too often we just think things are, our body's trying to tell us something, and we just ignore it, and so we wait until like anger and frustration are often real secondary emotions. So what happened earlier on in the day that then causes that anger to sort of erupt, or that it might be internal anger, it might not be external, or that frustration is really building up. Why is that? It's because you haven't had some quiet time. Is it because you haven't been able to, you continue to being interrupted, so you haven't been able to complete and finish a task? So what is it? What's happening? And then building that as a picture to help self out. Some people journal as well, so that they will write down. So a little exercise I'm supposed to do is to every couple of hours in a day, just write down, like just checking myself, like, how do I feel? What's happened? What sort of interactions have I had? And so you can start to see patterns to start off with. So literally just a couple of minutes every couple of hours, just to see what are the triggers, what are the challenges, what are the things that make you feel really good, and then how can you put those in? So you might find that music really picks you up. So you might not look for that when you're consulting or something, but can you have a sort of on the way home, rather than what's your psychological detachment are you doing from work to home, or from one zone at work, so consulting into theatre, or theatre into consult. Like, we have to wear different hats. So how are you actively moving through those different roles, or management, as we were talking about earlier, management to team player to leadership role? Be really purposeful about the steps that you're making, so you can be more present in the moment as you then go through those and you go through, and also are therefore present in each of those roles during the day. But a lot of it's practice and that reflection and feedback. So that's why if you can speak to your like team members and family members and people that you trust and you know are going to give you honest and be respectful of honest and respectful opinions, then that can help you can be a bit of an eye opener to start off with, a little bit uncomfortable. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think too often we don't get told things because people don't want to upset us, and then we don't even realizing that we are having a big impact on other people, which might not all be positive, but we've got no idea. We need to know how we impact people on a regular basis. What works for you? What works for your team? So even if you're working in a team, just asking you're asking your nurse, asking your receptionist, asking your other vets, what works for you when we're setting up at the theatre? What doesn't? What can we change? Rather than always doing things in a certain way. I think too often I hear people say, "Oh, well, I'm really self-aware. I know exactly how I am, but this is how I am. So tough." Like that's not okay. That's to be who you want to be outside of work. They really don't care. But inside of work, that's not professional. That's not okay. It's really damaging to your professional career, but also to the people that you work with. And we often also hear, that's just them. They're the best surgeon or the best practice manager or the best nurse. But you just have to allow them to have those outbursts. No, it's not okay. I think I'll probably say the words "it's not okay" so many times each week when I'm working with teams. That behaviour is not okay. Whatever's driving it, let's find out what's driving it. But we need to be more professional, and therefore be more in control. And that's what professional looks like: to be flexible and adaptable, to be able to modify our behaviours. And therefore we need to be in that proactive state rather than reactive. And so anything that we can do as an individual and a team and a practice and work better to improve the situation is going to be fruitful for everybody, and therefore also for the patients under our care.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's put it into practice. There's something we've been trying to do for a while with the podcast, as listener questions. And I think I have a question that I think this fits perfectly with, and I'd love a response.
Okay.
So a listener sent an email, and I'm gonna read. So this is not me. I'm quoting as the listener. So I just started a new job 1 month ago, and it's been going really well. It's a high quality practice, excellent standards of care, and fair working conditions. I'm a collaborative and happy person, and I love to get second opinions on my cases. I'm a few years out of uni, but I've good experience from big practices. My new boss has been a GP vet for a long time and has worked hard to build up the practice and still works full-time clinically. The boss is supportive and helpful, but at times this can be stifling if it is uncalled for, like coming into the consult room in the middle of my consult and take over, which completely undermines me in front of the client. I'm still called the new grad. We've had disagreements on treatments where I'm expected to administer treatments that I know is not necessary or safe, which has led to an argument where I was told that I should respect 30 years of experience. I do respect that I'm the employee, but it's also my name going to the paperwork, and I know I'm the one being pulled up by the vet surgeons board if something goes wrong. It's also very unsatisfying and not good for my confidence and morale. I'm not in a position to simply switch practices due to my partner's job, and it's a situation that leads me to feel stressed and unhappy. I don't know where to go to for help. So how would you coach this listener of ours?
Well, the first thing I'd say is don't do anything that compromises your qualification. So if something is unsafe, it's just a no-go. And whatever needs to happen to make that happen, because that's your qualification. But it's also saying that there are different ways of doing things, and probably it's about starting to have some conversations. He, whoever it is, has said that they've tried to have that conversation before, but they've sort of been told they just need to get on with it. Mm-hmm. So I would probably have more. So one technique we use is called the SBI technique for giving feedback. I don't know if you know that one. So you describe the situation, describe the behaviour, and describe the impact. So she could say, or he, I'm going to say she. I'm going to say she. You could say, so when you come into my consult room, when I'm with a client, and you make suggestions or contradict what I've just said, the impact it has is it makes me feel really, really undermined, drops my confidence, and I don't think, and it often confuses the clients at that point. Is that the impact? So you describe the situation, describe the behaviour, describe the impact. You're not describing them, you're describing the behaviours they're showing. And then you check in, is that the impact that you are intending to have?
Mhm.
If not, what can we do and how can we work together to have a better impact? Okay, so you can, or it could be that when we're in front of clients and you describe me as a new graduate, the impact it has is it makes me feel, again, my confidence goes down. It makes me feel really quite small in the practice and not that significant, or that you don't trust my opinions. Again, is that the impact that you're wanting to have? If not, could we think about a different name you have, or could we not use the new graduate term, or could we, what could you just say that it's that introduce me as Carolyne rather than the new graduate? So again, she needs to feedback the impact of the behaviours rather than them as a person. So it's thinking about the intention. Does she think her boss intends to make her feel stressed and unhappy? Does she feel that her boss intends to drop her confidence? If the answer is yes, then the question is, although it might be difficult, is that really the best environment for her to be in? She also says that she loves to ask for second opinions. Does she always need to ask? Is she always asking him for second opinions? So actually, is he thinking he's trying to help her by going in and helping her in her consult rooms? Does he think that he's helping her by actually saying, by calling her the new graduate, which then maybe not, he might be feeling that then puts less responsibility on her as an individual,
like a limitation.
Absolutely, and giving her a bit of a leeway. It's like, oh, well, I'm the new graduate. So I think more conversations need to be had around the impact and around the behaviours and working together. But then also, to try and reduce the chance, or reduce the reaction of that stress reaction, is for her to recognise that, oh, he said that again, but rather than he said that again and therefore it means X, Y, and Z, which she's created in her head. Actually, he said that again, right? That's my trigger, right? Stop, breathe. And we use sort of 7-11 breathing. So you breathe in for 7 seconds and out for 11 seconds. And if you do that 3 times, over a minute and a half, when we get stressed, we get that adrenaline and cortisol surge, and it's racing around our body, which then hijacks our brain, get activation of our sympathetic nervous system, and all the sort of physiological changes with that. When we focus on our breathing and do what we call 7-11 breathing for 90 seconds, it increases our vagal tone and switches on our parasympathetic nervous system. So it's the most effective way to change our physiology. So just to literally stop, breathe, and then think, right, what am I in control of? What am I not in control of? I can't control what he's going to say and what he's going to do. I can control how I'm going to react and what I'm going to say. So, right, and sometimes it's about rising above it as well. So as long as you are not doing things which are going to put your qualification at risk, as long as you are, it's not going to, it's just sort of asking yourself, is it illegal? Is it immoral? Are you causing harm to the patient? Are you causing harm to your qualification? If not, there are different ways of doing things. And if he wants to do that, then fine, we'll play that game. And I'm going to rise above it. And the majority of the time, I'm going to be able to focus on what I can do and what I can influence. But, sometimes I might need to do other things as well. So rather than having that fixed mindset of doing only A or only B. So creating that compromise in how you do things, as long as it's safe and it's not immoral or illegal or against your qualification. Starting to think about the SBI, have they actually had a sit-down conversation, not at the time, but in a way, and say to them, I'd love to have a chat with you. Can we book in a time for maybe an hour, so we can just talk about how we're working together at the moment. When would work for you? In the next couple of weeks, when would work for you? So you put them in control of setting the time frame, but you've also said, this is what I want. So you're managing expectations. You could also, if you think, oh my God, that's going to be a really hard conversation, which it really could be, think about do you need to write some notes so you don't get hijacked during that meeting? Do you need to send those notes maybe to the boss beforehand? Say, these are the things I'd like to discuss. So you know that you've already had that conversation. So that again, rather than thinking, right, now I need to bring this up, you've given them also time to think things through. And think about how because they might be mortified that they're having this impact on you. Most people don't want to drop their confidence of their new graduate. They don't want you to be stressed. They don't want you to be unhappy. But those are real feelings that you will really be having, and it will make you feel really quite trapped, quite stuck, quite lonely, and quite isolated as well. So recognize A, you're not alone, but B, have a conversation, and you might need to revisit that as well. So having a conversation once doesn't mean that you're done and dusted and now everything's going to be hunky dory. You're gonna, because it's about behaviours, and they will be in the habit. So you need to be able to pull them up as well in a safe, constructive way where it's going to be then better for them. And because also you can talk about not only the positives of changing behaviours, but also the consequences of nothing changing. Because if this continues, the reality is I'm going to continue to be stressed, and therefore I don't think I'm as productive as I could be, and I just know it's not working for me. And so you're not giving them an ultimatum, you're just actually saying the consequences of nothing changing. And if they're really happy with that, then fine. But that's not the practice for you. Whatever bigger things that means. But it's multifactorial. So having the conversations, looking at the structure of those conversations, of using like SBI, managing yourself in those situations until that they change their behaviour, being safe in your practice of how you do things, and noting the impact of those small things. So writing it down and journaling it and having someone to talk things through so that you're not alone. And I think that's one of the powers of coaching, is that it can bounce ideas, but also create your own network as well.
You said this then, Carolyne, that one of the powers of coaching. So who do you believe needs a coach?
I would say not everybody all the time, but everybody at some times. So for me, coaching is about enhancing our performance. I would love to get to a place where we see it as it is in many other professions, as a positive thing, a thing for improving ourselves. Like, why wouldn't you want to perform better, rather than waiting until we get broken and then we need to be coached? Again, but much more of that proactive approach to it. So I'm coached. I have a coach, and it's just about again improving what I do. And high performance. And so if you want to work at a high performance level, you wouldn't expect yourself as a sports person to be able to reach high and perform consistently, healthily and well, without having a really good coach behind you to help you, to hold yourself accountable to doing what you're doing, to help you learn and grow and develop and get that feedback. So everybody will need to say something different from coaching, although there are some really common things as well. And it's finding a coach that fits you, which is really important. It's a really personal relationship that you have with them. You need to feel that you trust them, and that they have got your back, and that they're going to hold you accountable, but they're going to also, I feel it's like that real, like a supportive glove that really helps you help yourself, and they've got your back, and that's what you want and need from your coach. So, and there are lots of different coaches out there. So find one that fits what you need and what you want as well.
Where and how do you go to find a coach? Because I've looked, and it's quite, you Google coaches and it's just like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a real challenge with coaches and coaching as a profession, that it's unregulated. So anybody can set themselves as a coach, and even have to be qualified. So I've just become a part of a Coaching for Excellence program to try and start to do this. This is not for veterinary, but this is outside to show excellence within a group of coaches, so that the buyer, the coachee, has somewhere to go to gain some standard that somebody's going to be, so that they're not going to be ripped off. It's often a decent amount of investment that you need to put, but not only financially, but just in your time and your energy level and yourself. So I think it's very trendy, especially in the veterinary sector. I think it's very trendy at the moment. I think that's a dangerous place. So people are becoming coaches without being qualified. So looking at people's qualifications, doing a bit of homework. Obviously, I'll say VDS training. We've all used come to us because we are all qualified coaches and with high levels of experience. But there are obviously others as well. There are things like the Coaching Academy directory, so that's what we would use as well. There isn't one, because it's not a regulated profession, there's not one go-to place. Word of mouth as well. But again, remember that everybody is different. So what really worked, one person's style of coaching really worked for one person might not work for another, but find the one that works for you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I think we should probably start wrapping up. I could talk to you forever. I think I might have to contact you privately. But we'll start wrapping up with our regular questions. Now we generally are you a podcast listener?
Yes, I am. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Any favorites? What do I need to add to my list of podcasts?
Well, it's a very non-veterinary one, but
Okay.
it's one that had a massive impact on me. And so it's called, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Beast of Man. It's actually, well, you're South African, Kevin Peterson's podcast. So the cricketer, England cricketer, South African. He has done one, it's a Radio 5 Live, so BBC Radio 5 Live. It's called Beast of Man by Kevin Peterson and Emma Barnett. And it's his passion, it's about his purpose around saving the rhino in Africa. And I can't stop thinking about it, actually. It shows passion, it shows the impact of both good and bad of man on animals. I highly recommend it. It is very, very, for me, it was very, very powerful. So I love that one.
Awesome. That'll go on the show notes, and I'm going to listen to it tonight.
Brilliant.
Excellent. And Gerardo, have you got anything else?
The one question actually that I'm really quite interested to hear, and it is our final question as always, is if you have a few minutes to give one piece of advice to all the new veterinary new grads or recent grads in the world, what would that piece of advice be?
So I think my piece of advice is understand your why. So why you're doing what you're doing, what is important to you in your life and in your career. Know that your why may change over time, and that's okay. So be comfortable with that. Make sure it's your why and not your parents' why or your partner's why, but your why. And this is your year, your career. So do the things that you love. Not every day not every day will be ideal, but find the fun and the inspiration in your daily actions and make your life and your career work for you. And only you can know what that looks like. Only you can know what your why is. So take time to focus on you and make sure that those small tweaks that you can make will make the difference that works for you in this next year and then also moving forward as well.
Just follow on from that, and if you had a resource for that, would you direct them to Simon Sinek's book and start with your why, or finding your why?
Yeah, we do actually. Yeah, absolutely. So I think Simon Sinek's is great for that, and then get the support of I would say get the support of a good coach to help you unpick your why and own your why as well.
Yeah, fantastic. That's perfect. Awesome.
I'm going to jump in with one more. You mentioned a book, Gerardo. I'm going to have to. You're a coach. You're going to have a list of books. Have you got books that you recommend that people have to read? Yeah.
So start with the why. Simon Sinek would be one. The Chimp Paradox, Mind Management by Dr. Steve Peters. That's a brilliant book around behaviours and the behaviours of our mind. So he's a real big sports psychologist. Self-Theories and Mindset by Carol Dweck. Fantastic books around the difference between fixed and growth mindsets, which I think are really useful. I love Matthew Said's Black Box Thinking, Bounce, and his books. Drive by Daniel Pink, I think is another really good one around our own motivation and the motivation of others. And another one, which was another real early one I read, Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande. And I never thought that reading a book about checklists would be really exciting, but it is really amazing. And again, the principles around culture, that's really around culture and what the medical field and then the implementation of checklists off the back of that. So those are my go-to books, I think.
I'm going to throw one in. Just a lot of the stuff you said earlier on fits in beautifully with the book I'm reading at the moment, called Insight by Tasha Eurich. Insight: The Power of Self-Awareness in a Self-Deluded World. Really good one for anybody listening who wants to learn about self-awareness a little bit. It's a great read.
Good.
That was great. Thank you very much for jumping on and jumping on the podcast so close after Christmas and New Year's. Generally, people like to have a bit of a break during this time and do nothing.
Thank you again so much. That was awesome. I think we should do it again. Enjoy the rest of the new year.
Yeah, we'll do. And you. Thanks very much for asking me. It's been great fun.